Hi, everyone, and welcome to our first edition of our Turkey Week series brought to you by the Oregon chapter of BHA. You don't see me, but you hear my beautiful voice. We were having a little bit of technical difficulties, but the good thing is our special guests do not. So they are going to lead the way in everything turkey, starting from scratch. With us, we have Mikal, Cline, and also Brandon Dyches. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that.
Dyches.
Thank you. And so I will not butcher this introduction any further. We are lean on time because we started late. So I will, without further ado, let you guys share your wealth of knowledge. And thank you.
All right. Hey, everybody. This is the first time I've ever done something like this. So we'll see how it goes. Brandon and I we've done this dog and pony show before in person. We've hosted several turkey hunting workshops for the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. And I guess we could start with a little bit more introduction, Brandon. I get paid as to be Oregon's upland game bird coordinator, and that includes managing turkeys. And I've been at that for a couple of years now. And prior to that, I worked for the Turkey Federation for about 6 years. And so I can talk turkeys all night long if you guys want to do that. But we want to be here as a resource for you guys to ask questions about how to find turkeys, good tactics for scouting. If you have questions about biology or regulations, we would love to answer those kinds of questions. I'm going to hand the baton over to Brandon to introduce himself a little bit more and talk about his experience with turkeys.
Yeah. Thanks, Mikal. Brandon Dyches. I'm also with Oregon Fish and Wildlife, and I technically worked for Pheasants forever. We can get into more about that relationship later in the live cast. My background for the past 2.5 years, I've been working with Information and Education Division here at ODFW, where I specialized in adult learn to hunt workshops. And one of our big projects was learn to hunt turkeys. And so that's through that workshop and pheasant and waterfowl, I met Mikal, and she was oftentimes our expert on seasons and regulations and the biology side. We would bring her into those in-person workshops and share with new hunters the sort of science and data side of hunting, where we had other instructors like myself and Andy Hamilton, who I think is on this live cast, share the tactics perspective from hunting, in terms of shotgun selection, patterning, how to scout for birds, what to do with a bird once you've harvested, because there's a lot of different pieces for new hunters and even experienced hunters we would have come in and try to teach something. So I think that's really my goal here today in this, is to provide the technique side of how to figure out where to hunt and approaches for hunting turkeys here in Oregon, with a special emphasis on public lands, because this is a BHA event. So we will definitely steer you toward good public land hunting spots and how to approach that in particular. So I think we'll keep this informal. Like Mikal said, if you have any questions, pop those up on the screen, and we'll get to those as they come. 2 areas we want to hit are the regulations, seasons, some of the more carved in stone things, and then also approaches for figuring out hunting public land turkeys here in Oregon. I think a good first starting place are the resources that ODFW makes available to the public. We just came out with the 2021 scouting report. Carla, if you can hear me, if I send the link now, will folks get that link as part of the conversation? Is that how that works?
Okay. I think so. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
She's back.
Sorry for the delay, everybody. And thank you guys for kicking it on, introducing yourself. Hi, everybody. I'm Carla, one of the Northwest Region Directors here at Oregon Backcountry Hunters and Anglers.
Yeah, your video looks great, Carla. That's yeah.
All right, she's back.
I got here. We got here a half hour early to test everything, and my video and stuff waited till when we began to just disappear. So sorry about that, guys.
Oh, no worries. Well, welcome back, and feel free to moderate like we'd planned. So let's just jump into this thing. So I just sent a link to the group, and this is our 2021 turkey forecast. Excuse me, I sent a link to the 2020 harvest statistics. The 2021 turkey forecast is here.
Yeah, so one of the ways that we can tell, how our turkey populations are doing is really by looking at last year's harvest, because we don't really emphasize doing turkey surveys, counting every turkey in the woods. So we really look at those harvest estimates to figure out whether, how each of these units are doing. So that's a great resource that Brandon put up there, the turkey harvest by unit. So you can look and see how those units are doing harvest wise. And you can also look and see how much hunting pressure it gets. So you want to look at the total number of hunters, and then you want to look at the hunter days. So you can see how much pressure those units get. And that's, if you're the kind of person that doesn't want to see another hunter in the woods, then this is your resource to figure out, how to get away from the crowds and still find turkeys. And so we'll also show you some distribution maps of where turkeys are. And then we've made maps based on harvest by public access, and harvest by unit and hunter effort. So there's lots of great resources in these links here. So it's a great place to start your research.
Michael, I'm going to share those maps.
Do it.
So I'm sharing my screen. Okay, give me a verbal okay if you can see that.
I can see it.
Great. Okay, so let's just walk through this map, and Michael and I can talk about it. This is a really high level look at Oregon, and there's some specific numbers we can look at later for a more detailed view. But if you look at harvest by management unit, this is a map that you've seen over the years from us, and you can really see that Willamette, White River, Roseburg, Southern Oregon, those are your turkey hotbeds traditionally by numbers, but those places are largely private land, with the exception of White River, and then down south you've got a good bit of public land here too. You see some decent turkey numbers here in terms of harvest by unit, and then also up in Sled Springs, Mount Emily. So we know this information. It's been the same. Like in terms of a general trend, one thing we found in the past couple of years is very, very fast increase in turkey hunters, but also harvest success in the northern Willamette Valley. If you've been a turkey hunter in Oregon for a long time, or sort of heard the local lore, Southern Oregon has been a classic. White River's been a classic. And those numbers are stable to flat, whereas you're seeing a huge increase of turkey hunting effort and harvest there. So something to note. This area has also seen an increase in the last 10 years or so.
Yeah, Brandon, it's cool to see if you. I was looking through these maps over the years and how they've changed, and you can see the Blue Mountains really get darker and darker as those turkey populations increase and hunters become more successful, especially in that John Day River Valley.
Absolutely, and I think that's just a point of special emphasis, because I think as hunters we can get in a rut and just trust somebody's advice that might be 10 years old, but turkey dynamics in Oregon are faster than that. And so it pays to really study the maps and study the numbers and be aware of population trends for sure.
Yeah, Sled Springs and Mount Emily are both really productive units as well. They're smaller, but they turn out some of the highest numbers in terms of harvest in the springtime.
Excellent. And you can definitely see that on this map. I'm going to go down to the next one. So here we have birds harvested per hunter unit. And so if you just want to think about the highest rate of success per unit, this is a good visual here. Clearly, the Roseburg area down in Southern Oregon is a great place to be. Curiously, we've got Walla Walla and Pine Creek showing up. I know a lot of noted Oregon hunter writers or turkey hunting writers here in the state have liked this Pine Creek Keating area. Just pretty high success rate there. And here in this swath, we're seeing pretty decent herky numbers. And in the Willamette Valley, all about the same in terms of harvest per hunter. Okay, this one's really interesting to me, and I just pick on White River so much. And Michael, you can
I do the same thing. Yeah,
push me back. You can push on me this. I don't know what your views are.
It always pops out on this map.
It gets hammered, and so like as a public land hunter, you really want to think what is my experience going to be? And I moved here 5 years ago from South Carolina, and all I've heard is go to White River, go to White River. Well, that's obviously is what's happening because you've got over 3,400 people in a tiny little unit trying to kill a turkey, and much of that is private anyway. So if you want to go and see turkeys but see a lot of hunters, then great, go to White River. Not to rag on it too hard, it is very close to Portland, Hood River, these major population centers.
It's convenient.
So it's convenient. You can get out. You can get out for the day. But just so much. I think that's your big Southern Oregon turkey hunting spot. Tons of BLM down there too. And but we'd really like to encourage some more distribution. This whole area right here.
Sorry, Brandon, we're getting a little delay. I was just going to comment on the Rogue that of all of of those units down there's actually quite a bit of public land on the Rogue, and I think it's maybe ODFW's fault that the Rogue is as dark as it is, because we do send a lot of hunters there. We say if you don't have private land access, the Rogue actually has quite a bit of public access, and so we've kind of piled people in there. And now we see the results of that. It's still a very successful unit, but the hunter use is definitely increasing in the Rogue.
Right, for sure. So this next map, I think it. Correct me if I'm wrong, Michael, but this is a very new map for us, and it's
nobody has seen this before.
So
this is brand new.
Kelly Walton, she's Michael's assistant upland game bird biologist there at ODFW. She's a map genius, and she's good with GIS, and she's put together this view, which is super helpful for the public land hunter, because you can see that White River story and that Rogue story and the increasing turkey success and harvest in the Willamette Valley is largely private. So if you're somebody wanting to get out in public land this spring, really give consideration to these dark red areas here. Like we mentioned earlier, that Pine Creek Keating line can be solid. So Michael, sort of the population dynamics here from a biologist perspective, like why is this getting better? Why are turkeys here doing well? And why should public land hunters consider taking a look at Eastern Oregon, even though it's a little farther drive this year?
Yeah, great question, Brandon. It's a little bit baffling that our turkey populations just keep going up and up, and we've had very few poor years. I mean, some units will go up and down. Like we've seen some We've seen some die-offs in like the Sylvies and the Hepner unit. For some reason, it may be winter related. It may have been a disease event. We don't know, but they all bounce back, and there's just really nothing that's limiting the population of these birds right now. I'm sure that they do experience some predation. I'm sure that they experience some wintering out, but for the most part, these birds have figured it out. They've cracked the code on how to survive out in the Blue Mountains and beyond. And they're expanding their territory as well. So we're starting to see a lot of birds on, kind of building up on the south of Vail area on the Idaho border. And those birds came over from Idaho, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, they've just cracked the code, and we've got a lot of turkeys in some of these areas, and so in the springtime, these birds will actually migrate up onto public land. They may winter on private land down on ranches that are feeding cattle, and so the turkeys have figured out how to get an easy meal in the wintertime, which can certainly be a limiting factor. But as long as they can make it to the point where they start their spring migration up in elevation to the nesting and the breeding grounds, that's all on public land, you guys. So and there's so many national forests in Oregon, and every one of them has turkeys. Plus the BLM. I mean, there's not that many turkeys down in the southeast part of the state, but there's a lot of BLM in the Roseburg and Medford area. So yeah, I see a note in the chat asking about the types of turkeys that we have here, and so I'll go ahead and address that now. So we started off, just a little bit of history. We started off with Merriam's here, and even some Easterns.
Keeping the public theme going. Yeah.
Uh-oh. Brandon, I think we're having some delays there. I was just gonna comment on the fact that we've got.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, I was just commenting on the fact that we have mostly Rios here in the state now. There may be some hybrid Merriam and Rios up in the White River area, but there's no pure Merriams left in the state. Really, there. You may harvest a bird with a whitetail fan, but for the most part, it's the Rios have been wildly successful here, and. The reason for that, I think they're just a little bit more adaptable. Merriam's evolved in higher elevation, mountainous areas where they rely on conifers, and Rios, of course, come from Rio Grande Valley, and they just seem to be really good at producing chicks. They if they lose their nest, they try again. They lose that one, they try again. And Merriam's maybe not, they didn't evolve to be as aggressive in re-nesting, and that made the difference. But anyway, that's what you'll find here is Rios, and maybe a little bit of mixed blood in certain places.
Right. So we're going to talk about scouting here for a minute. Mikal, I've heard that Western birds like Rios and will talk.
Looks like we're having a little bit of a delay.
Sorry, I think Brandon's talking about vocalization in these birds, and so it's definitely a gradient. And in my experience, I really haven't hunted a lot of Easterns, but definitely Rios and Merriams, and I think Rios kind of falls somewhere between Easterns and Merriams as far as how aggressive you need to be with calling. They're somewhat vocal. But Merriams really like you to talk to them a lot, and they're but Rios is a little bit more of a nuanced approach, and I think you really have to talk sweet to the Easterns from what I've heard. But that's Brandon. He's from South Carolina, so he can tell you about those differences.
Oh, I yak at all of them, but
you just let it rip. Huh?
I let it rip all the time.
I've always found it frustrating to hunt, with guys and gals who hunt Easterns. They don't call nearly as much as I'm used to. It is frustrating for me because I like to call too.
Well, I know people are going to have a lot of questions about calling too, but before we move too far away from the map system, we got a question from, it looks like 2 people here. So when we're looking at these maps of bird harvest, the lower harvesting areas, is that due to bird population or just to land access for hunters?
I think that hunters really, they will put the effort in where the birds are. And so maybe a little bit of both. But for the most part, if there are turkeys out there, hunters are going to find them, whether it's the landowner or friends of the landowner, or it's public land and people have figured out where they're at. So this is the best information we have as far as where those turkeys are, except maybe that one. I have one more resource I can show folks where we've collected, and this is not publicly available, but I will show it to you, where we just collected all of the turkey sightings that we could. We used to collect turkey sightings as we were introducing turkeys to the state. And we've collected those all in a database, and then we keep that up to date. And then Kelly put those on a map for you guys to see. So I can throw that up. I think you guys will find this interesting. Bear with me here. All right, can you guys see that? So these are actual turkey sightings. And of course, some of these are dots piled on top of dots, but this shows our turkey range. This is literally where the turkeys are. You can see it at the top. We were using this to estimate the number of turkeys in the state. So we estimate there's somewhere around 45 to 46,000 turkeys in the state as of 2019. And that number, I think, is really just going to keep on growing. So it's interesting that we have a buildup of turkeys on the coast. And that definitely, we see that in some of our, people complain about turkeys, and we keep track of that as well. So that's interesting. But we're also seeing this nice buildup of birds all throughout the Blue Mountains. But you can really see how thick those birds are through the Willamette Valley, and then, down through the Umpqua and the Rogue. So that is something special for you guys to take a look at. And I'll leave it up for just a little bit longer for you to peruse. But you can also see those birds on the Idaho border too, really starting to, that line really wasn't there before, but it is now. And then we also have birds showing up in the Milton Freewater area. Not sure where they came from. Not sure if we really want them there, but they're there. So.
And just to be clear, this is not a map you're going to find online anywhere else, right?
That's right.
All right, guys, pay attention.
All right.
When I did a little bit of pre-asking around to see what everybody's popular turkey questions were, it was no surprise that it's all, where do I find birds? Where do I get started? Land access and where the birds are is definitely the number one question I see on forums, and the number one question people wanted to ask. So that was exactly what I think everybody was hoping for today.
Yeah, where are the birds? Well, I don't think any of that's a real secret, but it does show you where the birds are not. And that's equally important, right? So you're not going to spend a whole lot of time in the Bend Fort Rock unit of the Deschutes, for example. There's really just not that many birds there. But the other thing that I will let you guys know about is that we do trap and transplant turkeys all winter long. So we have turkeys that get in trouble. They get unwelcome and they've made themselves at home in the middle of cattle feeding operations and become a nuisance. And so we trap those birds when we can and transplant them into units where we're trying to build up the flocks. And so some of the units where we are moving birds are the Sylvies, Keno, Interstate, Klamath. So Klamath Canyon, they're getting quite a few birds. But Sylvies, it would be kind of like that north of Burns anyway. I can't remember the name of the unit there. Immigrant Creek maybe, or I can't remember for sure. But anyway, that's where those birds are going, and you are very welcome to go harvest some of those birds. It's not I don't feel like we need to keep it a secret. We move those birds for public recreation. We want these birds to serve a purpose. That was the reason that turkeys were brought to Oregon in the first place, was really for really for consumptive recreation. And so when we have turkeys that are not serving that purpose, like they're in downtown Eugene, then, I find that, turkeys lose value. People perceive them as a pest, and we would like them to be a valued game species.
For sure.
Yeah, and they kind of lend to that, stereotype or that myth that turkeys are stupid too, because when people have them kind of, come in their back door because they got food in their backyard, it perpetuates this myth that turkeys are easy to hunt. That's not. I've been told that by some people that turkey's not ethical to hunt because they'll just walk right up to you. Not true with the wild ones.
Right.
And you're talking about relocating and all. Is there any particular long-term goal that ODFW has? Any kind of ideal turkey population and distribution in the state?
Yeah, that's a great question, Carla. And we do have all of that information kind of outlined in the Oregon Wild Turkey Management Plan. I don't have the link handy, but it's an easy Google. And so, yeah, if you are wondering, we do have a plan and that we stick to. And really that plan is we are not planning to establish any more new populations of turkeys. So we are only going to move birds into places where turkeys already exist. We have to find a balance between what landowners are willing to tolerate, the impact of turkeys on the environment when they reach a certain density. Brandon has seen some roost piles that would blow your mind in some areas in the valley where there's
1 foot high.
A foot high roost pile under a tree. I mean, it's unbelievable, those pictures. So we're trying to find that balance between, plenty of good recreation and healthy turkey populations, but still, at a tolerable level. So particularly in the wintertime that people can handle the size of those flocks.
Yeah. And speaking of nuisance turkeys, Brandon, you've been working on some opportunities with landowners who have more turkeys than they care to, right? Are you with us, right, Brandon?
So, coming through?
It's a little spotty, but
Yeah, I can hear you better than we can see.
Coming through now?
You can just go ahead and talk.
Okay. Yeah, last year we started a project to connect hunters with private landowners through an online reservation tool. And so the second year, we're doing that again. And we launched last Thursday.
You get a little choppy there, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, I just have to leave people hanging. Not our friend today. Yeah, I see that Joel Strimling's on here. He's used the Hunt by Reservation program, and it's been wildly popular. It was launched last Thursday, and Brandon's doing a rolling launch, so every Thursday. I believe he can correct me if I'm wrong. There'll be new dates available for people to book turkey hunts, and these are smaller properties, typically on places where the landowners are experiencing damage. So it's not the kind of hunt you would put on the cover of BHA magazine because you might be behind someone's garage, or it's hunters solving a problem for a landowner. And on a smaller acreage, that can't accommodate a whole lot of hunters. And so those of you that were there for the Thursday launch, there was a little malfunction, bugs were worked out. But the good news is there'll be more dates available this Thursday, 10 a.m. Pacific. So It looks like Brandon's having a little bit of internet problem, but that's all right.
Yeah.
I can talk about turkeys all night, Carla. So.
Well, perfect. I think there are people who can join us all night, maybe.
Yeah.
And if you can't see it in the chat there, Brandon did write in that they are releasing dates every week. So if you missed it last week, you'll still have a chance. It sounds like there was some kind of tech glitch that maybe messed up some people's plans there.
Yeah. And he said they sold out in less than 60 seconds. So it happened,
Wow.
It happened fast. So people were on the button. But he's done a great job of connecting with landowners who are experiencing turkey damage, and then hooking them up with hunters like you guys, and a lot of newer hunters, and also kids. I mean, or people that just literally didn't have the time to get out to their favorite spot because of COVID or the smoke or all of that. So we're going to be running this spring and fall, and I'm really excited about it. It's been something that we've needed for a long time, especially in the Valley, because it's over 90% private land.
Yeah, definitely in the Willamette Valley, it pays to know friends with turkey problems.
Yeah, but they're not the most scenic hunts always. So you have to balance that.
Not the kind of backcountry hunt we all probably aspire to. But I'm going to take a moment really quick while we wait for Brandon to get back with us. Hey, Brandon, I can see you again.
Can y'all hear me again?
I can hear you. You're back.
They talk about your program and you bow out. That wasn't on purpose, I promise.
I kind of gave him the rundown a little bit about the rolling release and all of that, Brandon.
Perfect. Yeah, you nailed it. So folks, check back every week. Even if you don't see a property on the website, we've got some waiting in the wings. I just found 2 more properties today, so we'll have more. Some will fall out because if folks are too successful and the turkeys move elsewhere, then we'll pull that property. But continue to recruit more. So keep up to date with that. I heard some backyard bird talk. It's easy in Oregon to look down on turkeys that way, but I'd encourage you to check out properties in the Valley to get some touches with gobbles and how to call to birds and get experience there. That's invaluable, whether you're a new hunter or a youth or even a seasoned vet, or maybe coming from a different state. Fourth hunter, they're not as foolish as folks like to say. So they get call educated, and it can be just as challenging in a tight setting as well as it is out in public land. So
yeah, I can definitely attest to that. Just because they're living in proximity to people doesn't mean they're going to be an easy target at all. So I was going to take a minute, speaking of Willamette Valley hunts and how hard it is to get land access and find an opportunity if you're a new hunter. We, during Turkey Week, because our Turkey Week event, this is our kickoff for it, and we're going to be doing a new turkey hunting workshop every night this week. And also we're doing a raffle, and there are a couple of prizes. I'm going to see if I can't get my screen up here. I'll pull that up for you. All right, let's see here. So this is the Raffle website, and there's a link. If you look down below where all of our videos are, it'll say enter our Turkey Week raffle. So you can click over there and check that out. We have a couple of prizes. The coolest, most exciting one, in my opinion, is a mentored spring turkey hunt experience. So this is going to be a private land Willamette Valley hunt and SIO. And we're going to do it pretty early in the season, either April 24th or 25th that weekend, or the following weekend of May 1st and 2nd. And in addition to getting a mentored hunt experience with us here at BHA, we're going to give you a BHA branded turkey mouth call, and we're going to hook you up with a fan mount by one of my personal favorite bird taxidermists who was kind enough to donate, J. Herman Taxidermy in Malala. And we do have another prize. which is a Dave Smith Jake decoy. If you've ever seen the DSD decoys, they're really, really nice, like excellent quality, pretty pricey. So this is a great opportunity to get that. And then last but not least, a 3-pack of Phelps turkey calls and a crow call. So tickets are $10 and we got plenty available. So go ahead and click over there. Either, you can wait till the end of this, or it'll be up all week and we'll be sending lots of links out for it. And then we'll be announcing the winners on Sunday, April 11th.
Hey, Brandon, why would people need a crow call for turkey hunting?
That looks great.
There we go.
Oh, you're muted.
Locating gobblers. So a crow call, owl call. There's no.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Better?
Keep going. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, for making a bird gobble. So in order to hunt the gobbler, you got to see him or hear him, and mostly we want to hear him because if you see him, he's already seeing you, most likely. So in the morning, owl hoots are pretty typical. Crow calls for morning, midday. People use coyote howlers. I think Steve Rinella's got a shirt with everything a turkey will gobble to. So that's really the goal. One of the big things that I keep screwing up is I'll make turkey sounds too quickly. As soon as you make a turkey sound and a turkey responds to you, they know exactly where you are, almost to the foot. So just keep that in mind as you're out in the woods prospecting for turkeys on public land. I've seen this. In White River, no less. I heard some hen yelps, and it was my first year in Oregon. And I was sitting there. I thought, is that a turkey or a hunter? 4 guys came walking by, one in a white T-shirt because it was hotter than he expected. And they were walking and calling. It wasn't even run and gun. It was like walk and wear white T-shirt and gun. And I could see them coming from forever away. And there's no way you can not scare a turkey doing that. So the crow call is a way to elicit a gobble from a turkey that you want to hunt without giving away the fact that you might be a bird. So if you can get that gobble somehow, then think of a strategy and a setup location. That's just, pretty seasoned advice there, because if you start sounding like a turkey too soon, you're going to bump birds. And on public land, you might only have a bird or 2 per hunt, so make the most of it.
Yeah, when you are trying to get gobbles out of them, when you're trying to locate roosts in the evening, is that a good strategy to try to get them to gobble from the roost?
Oh, that's a terrific strategy. And, I love to roost birds. And in fact, I will almost always try to do that, but life and time, and, I just had a kid, so I don't know if my big talk will pan out for this year now that I have new responsibilities. But if you can roost a bird, that increases your chance of success dramatically. And the same thing applies for getting a bird to gobble on the roost. You can yelp, you can do a coyote howl. I've heard 10 birds in a creek go off at a coyote howl or a pack of coyotes, and that's exciting because you know a good place to set up for the next day. Typically, birds will gobble on the roost on their own, but as hunters, we can encourage them to gobble a few more times if you happen to miss their natural gobble. The birds are communicating to each other about where they are for the next day. And I don't see this in turkey literature, but I'm a big believer of marinating an area. So if, a lot of times my best hunts in an area will be the second day, because I've just laid down a lot of calls, hen calls, gobbles, a lot of activity. And I really feel like birds on the periphery will hear that. You've chummed the water, so to speak. And then the next day, some of those toms you never heard or saw could drift in and show up. And so if you're there in the evening and you can get some sound out into the woods, I think whether you hear a gobbler or not, that can help your next morning, if that makes sense. And on public land, I'll add a little bit of spice about public land. You got to move. I've heard or seen people just thinking they were in a good spot because they saw a turkey feather and just sitting down and patiently calling because some article said call seldom, and they'll yelp 3 times and sit there for hours. But on public land, I just think there's so much space that you got to run. You got to move. You got to cover ground. To make it a little easier, we've seen the maps. These birds, whether you're out east or out west, they're not going to be far from water. They love to roost over on top of creeks or at least nearby. So if you can break apart a landscape pretty quickly by looking at the creek drainages, and that's a huge way to be more efficient when you're approaching a big swath of public land. Michael, you might have some bio interpretation there.
Yeah, no, that's all great. I mean, I think all of this is doubly important when you're going into a new area and you're trying to locate birds that in an area you've never hunted before. And just like Carla said, getting those birds roosted, figuring out, pinpointing the roost that's money for figuring out, where you're going to set up in the morning. It's just a great strategy for canvassing a new area. But yeah, you're right. They like to roost next to creeks because that's where the big trees are, especially out east, right? So you're looking for cottonwood trees for the most part. We see them roost in ash trees. I've seen them roost in juniper trees when there was nothing else to roost on. Certainly big old pine trees up on a protected ridge, that sort of thing. We've definitely seen them use those. But if you see cottonwood trees and that's where you should go down and start looking for turkey signs, start looking for droppings underneath the trees, look for feathers, and then that you're on the trail. But just getting in the vicinity that's the first trick. I think you'll find on public land a lot of those really big, beautiful drainages are on private land. But the nice thing about spring turkey is the birds are higher in elevation that time of year anyway. So you want to be up at the snow line if you're hunting in elevation. I'm not talking about the valley, but if you're hunting in the Blue Mountains, you want to be up at the snow line because that's where the turkeys are that time of year.
Michael, do you think that's because they're keying up on that fresh green up as they're
I think
eating?
So. A little bit chicken or egg. The hens want to be in the vicinity of where they're planning to nest. The males want to be in the vicinity of the hens, but they're also following that green up because they need those nutrients to produce eggs and build up their fat reserves for the incubation period. So they're looking for groceries, and they're going to be. They've already utilized everything down below, and so they're moving up and getting the fresh greens.
So this is probably a good time for this question from one of our audience here, and that's how does topography figure into your hunt? And I know you sometimes hear things about whether or not you can call turkeys up or down hills, and if you've got some topography in your hunt area, what are you looking to set up in?
I'll answer that kind of in a macro and a micro sense. Macro sense, I find that birds will generally fly off the roost downhill. So if you've got a roost tree picked out, try to think about where they're going to end up, either toward the water or down a slope. Not 100% true, but a general trend. Second, the conventional wisdom is that a bird doesn't want to go uphill. He doesn't want to approach you from uphill. I guess the theory is that a bigger gobbler could be higher and more threatening. So I don't pay that too much of attention, but it's in the back of my mind. And like really, really micro, what I always think about, because I rarely hunt with a decoy, is I want terrain to influence my setup. And this is huge. And people forget this, but it's huge. If I've got a lip or a huge bush or a curve in a road or something, I want to be 25, 35 yards from the first place that turkey steps out to see. So I'll say this again because it's the biggest thing you could practice this year. Don't just be arbitrary in your setup. Look at your terrain on a micro level and say, where's this turkey coming from? Where is he likely? Where's a second place he might sneak around and try to approach for me from? How can I set up so that the first time he sees what he thinks he hears is within shotgun range or bow range? So that might be a ditch that's 4 feet deep that you're in. It might be a real thick, brush line where he has to peek on the outside of that brush line in order to see what he thinks is a hen. Something like that. That's the biggest terrain tip that I could ever offer folks that just doesn't get talked about enough. So if he pops out and it's 90 yards, you just lost. He beat you because he's going to look at where he heard the sound, and if there's not a hen there, then he'll bail and he'll do something else. And even if you have decoys, he might be the kind of turkey who doesn't like decoys. So why risk it? No, let the decoy be at 35, at 25, and have him come to that.
And on that note, we got a question about how burn areas and really steep areas will affect your hunt.
Yeah, that's a big question.
So Mikal and burn.
Yeah, maybe. I'll tell you, the very first turkey I ever harvested was in Nebraska. It was a Merriam's, and it was on an area that had burned the previous year, and it was just ashes, and it was like turkey hunting for dummies because you could see the fecal material from a mile away. You could see the droppings. They were bright white against the ash. But inside the ash was all this green up, just like we were talking about, because there's all this nitrogen input into the soil. And so there was a lot of good groceries in there, despite the fact that it looked pretty charred from a distance. So I'm not going to tell you that there aren't turkeys in burned areas. Also, they had a beautiful strutting ground up in there because, the males were nice and visible, and when they're showing off for the hens, they want to be appreciated from every angle, right? So having a bunch of brush in there to block the view isn't in their best interest, to show themselves off to their best advantage. So you could see where the toms had been dragging their wings in the ashes, and you could literally see it on the ground. It was so cool. Footprints everywhere. So I'm not going to tell you that they're not in the burns. I would just look really carefully at the vegetation and make sure that it wasn't a hot burn that scorched the soil and nuked the seed bank so there's nothing to eat. And just keep safety in mind, because sometimes in those fresh burns you got trees falling over. You don't want to be out there when it's windy and that kind of thing. And
what about really steep topography? Can you still find turkeys on that?
Well, I think what you want to look for is those ridge tops, especially, and I'm thinking about Eastern Oregon. And so if you're looking for turkeys in high elevations, they are there. They're up there. For the most part, you're going to locate them up in the vicinity of the ridge tops. And so that's where I would start. It's not a big deal for a turkey to move up and down a slope. But for the most part, you're going to find them up on the ridge, on the balds.
Cool. And
where they can see and be seen.
Yep.
Yeah. So that seems like a good kind of rule of thumb. If you're looking for a good place to expect turkeys, they're going to want a lot of clearance around where they're going to be displaying, it sounds like.
Yeah. So I see in the chat, Emily mentioned we've got a ton of options for burns in Oregon. I realize that may be a little bit tongue in cheek. The truth is we've never really had a lot of turkeys in that part of the Cascades because the forest was too dense for, to really accommodate turkeys. Though I just saw a picture of a Jake at Brighton Bush, so I guess they are around, and that's a fresh burn there. I've got pictures of 3 jakes walking over hoodoo. So, but in general, that's never been a real hot spot for turkey. So I'm real curious to see, as you know, through the years, as you know, that veg was knocked back so much, if it becomes a magnet for birds or not. But frankly, I probably wouldn't spend a whole lot of time there.
And so we have some questions about kind of turkey behavior, and this is one I've never heard before, so I'm really curious about it. Somebody asked if, and I know that turkeys have really good eyesight, but they said, can they see residual phosphate residue from laundry detergents on your clothes? And they've heard that their eyesight is sensitive to spectrums that we don't see, that maybe we have something on our clothing or on our bodies that they can see and we aren't thinking about.
Yeah, good question. I don't think I have a great answer for you, but we do know that, you know, most birds can see in the ultraviolet spectrum, and so what one turkey looks like to another is probably much more brilliant than what we see. And so yeah, I'm not up on the laundry detergent discussion so much, but I've heard if you use the laundry detergent that has the blue in it, that can light up your clothes on the UV spectrum. And so so if you're having a really hard time getting into birds, or you're spooking them and they're seeing them before if they're seeing you before you see them, then it's time to start making those micro adjustments. And so yeah, that's about as much info as I know about that. Brandon, have you heard anything along those lines?
I haven't. I insist that we get the UV or the phosphate free stuff around the house, but the other phosphate stuff keeps creeping in somehow. So my word doesn't mean anything here. So, I would say don't geek out about camo too much. I mean, get what's comfortable, get what you can afford, get earth tones, certainly nothing red, white, or blue. Movement is far more important than camo patterns. So work on that discipline and the way you move through the woods, your sense of timing on when to be still and when you can afford to move. And I'd pay a lot more attention to that than phosphate detergents. But I'd be curious to see a study or any more information, because like Mikal, I don't really know the answer to that. I know that how birds act in the woods, and if you move, it's you might have a second chance, but you can't move too much. And we've killed them in just plain drab clothing, so I don't think you need super fancy camo, as long as you're still at the right time.
Yeah, and that brings up something that I kind of wanted to touch on too, which is like what is really essential, for turkey hunting versus what we're kind of told. You're always kind of told you need a decoy, you need really nice camo. I'm a fairly new hunter, and I've harvested a couple of turkeys without camo. And in my experience, if you just hold real still, they could be looking right at you, no camo. And if you're completely motionless, they'll kind of just be like, all right, and they'll walk away. So on that note, we did get a question about how necessary it is to use decoys. And if you are using decoys, how you want to set them up.
Yeah, so that's a great question. And, I don't have the answer because, like with many things, there's so much preference and personality involved in how you do something. I don't use a decoy because I'm lazy and I just hate fooling with them. And I have a few, and I keep giving them away or selling them on Craigslist. And I think if you're going to use a decoy, it's awesome for a youth hunter or a new person, or maybe you're doing filmed hunts or group hunts where you've got a blind and like you want to set the decoy up somewhere. If you're in the woods, carry it around, you can set one up too.
I think we may have lost you there.
Oh.
So we're going to be doing, like I said, we're going to have like a new workshop every night this week. And then I think it's going to be Thursday. We're going to have a workshop that's specifically talking about how to set up your hunt, how to, put out decoys if you want to use them, how to call. So we'll be getting into a little bit more detail about that stuff too. Do you have any opinions about decoys, no decoys, Mikal?
Well, he's right. Like it a little bit has to do with how close you want your birds to be. I tend to use decoys. And I don't know if it improves my success or not. I think if I was an archery hunter, I would feel pretty strongly about wanting that bird to be in closer. Then I'm a shotgun hunter really, and I think it does increase my confidence. But I can also tell you, like I've had so many times using a decoy, setting it up and thinking this is the lane that's obviously the turkey's going to come in. And I'll tell you what, 9 times out of 10, they come around the back side of me where I don't have a shot at all. And I pack this decoy out to the middle of nowhere. And so the truth is, if you're public land hunting and you're kind of run and gun style, you may not want to fool with it because you're putting on the miles. If you prefer to bring the birds into you and put fewer miles on your shoe leather, then maybe a decoy is what you want to use. A ton of great options out there, but they're bulky and it definitely slows you down and then you have to take time to get your setup just right, and sometimes it messes you up. But it does take the turkey's eyes off of you and has it's going to key in on the decoy instead of you, which if you hunt by yourself, sometimes that can be really nice. If you're hunting with another person, you can have them do the calling, and the turkey's going to focus on the caller rather than the shooter, and that can be a good strategy for success.
Absolutely.
Brandon, you're back. I see you.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'll just add to that. If you're just getting started or revising your program, get a good Jake decoy where the red head is visible from 360, and I would start with that. And the game bird philosophy here is that bird is hearing your hen yelps. And if he gets in tight and sees a Jake but doesn't see the hen, he's still curious. He's got to figure out the situation. Who's this Jake imposter? He'll come in. He will generally address the Jake in the front. Try to fight. So if you go decoy, seeing the Jake face to face, or approaching it from wherever he's coming from, if you don't want to tuck the Jake in somewhere where you can't see. So I think Carla said they're going to be doing a lot of stuff later this week on technique, but just to cap up decoys, it could go either way. Just think about your tolerance for taking stuff around the woods.
Yeah.
less and less as the season progresses.
Yeah. And speaking of, where you can get a Jake decoy is if you win the raffle. We're having right now.
And that's the best one out there.
The free one. Yeah. Well, free and Dave Smith, they're good.
I can't remember how much those retail for, but $169 it looks like. So it's a pretty sweet deal if you win that.
They're super cool.
Yeah, and one thing I learned myself putting this workshop this week together that I hadn't really thought about with decoys is if you are an archery hunter, if you're fairly new and you kind of have like a small zone of confidence with your shotgun, it can be nice to set up your decoys and set up where you're going to be hunting from and have that range in mind so that it can be really hard to figure out what's 20 yards versus 40, especially when you've got elevated topography and stuff. So if you know where your decoys are, that's a good reference point so that when your birds do come in, okay, that decoy is at 40 yards and then this hen's at 25, and that gives you a good model for what you can shoot at.
That's a great point, Carla.
All right, so we got a couple other questions. Speaking on bird behavior, call or shut up and be quiet?
Yeah, good. that is the question, isn't it?
Don't shut up. Everybody else don't call, but let me call. So, because I don't want to think you're a turkey in the woods, right? No. I don't know. Like everybody said, like so many people say, be sparing. I don't see advice to call a lot. One of my favorite turkey hunters calls it super, super aggressively. I'll answer it quick and shut up. If you're good, call a lot. If you're still working on it, keep working on it. I can't duck call great, but I go with people who are awesome, and we kill ducks when they call. But when I do, we don't. When I turkey hunt, I kill a lot of birds because I know I figured that out. So like that's my goal and challenge to you out there is to if you have to ask that question to yourself or to anybody else, when you're calling. And there's a ton of great videos out there. Shane Simpson's my favorite. He's a fellow South Carolinian. Callingallturkeys.com. He's got a read pack. He's got instructional videos. He's the man. So I have no affiliation with him. Just check him out. I played French horn in high school, nerd. So I come from calling from like this musical perspective. So if that's your speed and you can really get a mouth call and find a box call to complement it and just like really understand turkey vocalizations and spend some time in the woods, you can call a lot and get away with it. If you're still a little rusty and you don't quite sound perfect, it can be a deterrent. So I know that's a kind of a nuanced answer, not a yes or no, but kind of where I land on it.
I think there's also some cycles in how vocal the turkeys are throughout the season as well. Yeah. When they want to respond and they're feeling more vocal. And I think most people would agree that the turkey's willingness to vocalize will decline as the season goes on. I think they just get tired. They get hot. The days get long. If you're hunting on Memorial Day weekend, that's a lot of sunlight, and those turkeys are tired. They've been out there doing their thing for quite some time since March, maybe February in the valley. You'll see birds strutting, so they're tired and it's hot under all those feathers, and so the effort that they're going to put in, and also the number of willing females has declined drastically, right? So they're not going to put the effort in if there aren't females to impress. So as the season wears on, there's more hens sitting on nests than interested in breeding. And so, for the amount of effort that a Tom puts in, he's not going to get that much out of it. So I tend to advise people to call more aggressively earlier in the season, and then try to imitate what's going on in the woods later on. There will be a second peak in breeding as the hens maybe lose their nests, something goes wrong. And they'll come back to breed, but typically that's not that far away from our opener. So our opener is April 15th. There's a youth season ahead of that, but frankly, most of the hens are already bred at that point, and they'll be starting to put down eggs. We designed the season that way on purpose. So you may be wondering, well, how come we don't start turkey hunting earlier? Because I see birds strutting and I feel like I could probably hunt them really successfully, right? But what we really want is to give the hens a chance to go lay down a nest without any hunting pressure on them. And it also reduces confusion from people who aren't completely aware of what their target is, maybe don't really know what the difference between a hen and a jake, and they mistake their target. So there's a lot fewer hens that could potentially be harvested kind of as the season goes on. They should be sitting on nests for the most part if they're planning to breed. You also see hens that aren't ready to breed and they're kind of tagging along with the group, and they're kind of little and they're just not quite ready yet. You definitely see that. But for the most part, all the hens have been bred by the time that you're out there ready to hunt. So things are already slowing down by the opener.
So what's your opinion on
Michael, that's a cool. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. Tell us what's cool.
Oh, there was a delay there. I would say Mikal gave this nice narrative arc of the sin. I linked below in the comments to an article by Phil Borgelli, great writer for Field and Stream, on the gobbling peaks. Last thing to add was like similar to how the season has a narrative arc, so does the day. So if you can call a lot in the morning because that's turkeys waking up, trying to connect with each other and establish their pattern and interactions for the day. Once they have that, their chatter will die down. They'll pick it up again situationally. Borgelli talks about this in this article. And then by the afternoon, they don't talk much at all. So I think it's important to be sensitive to the seasonal narrative arc, but also the day in the life of the turkey. And you can adjust your calling frequency to that. That's all I got.
Awesome. So we have a question that is, if you're going into an area on the second weekend that's going to have a lot of hunting pressure opening weekend, what's your advice for getting on that area that's been kind of slammed? Is it easy? Like if you know your area is going to be kind of hammered with hunters, is it worth waiting a couple weeks into the season and trying to get out there?
Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's fair, especially if you really don't want to mix it up with the other hunters. There's still going to be plenty of turkeys out there. I just think you have to do a little bit more work, get off the roads. I found that locating roosts becomes more difficult as the season wears on. The birds maybe retreat to a little bit more remote places. And so getting them to gobble off the main road gets harder and harder for sure. So you have to do a little bit more work, in my opinion, if you're hunting an area that gets a lot of pressure. And, people draw a lot of parallels between turkey hunting and elk hunting. And I think that maybe holds true in this case too, where, just get off the main drag and because turkeys know that you're there. They know that hunters are in the woods. There's some amazing research, I think, that came out of Mississippi where they had GPS trackers on hunters and turkeys simultaneously, and you could just watch the turkeys here's the hunter and the turkeys they're just doing this, right? And the turkeys absolutely knew where those hunters were. And so yeah, you got to do the work and you got to be sneaky. And you can kind of assume that a lot of the hunters out there maybe aren't as sneaky as you want to be. So I don't know, Brandon, what do you think?
I just go when I can get out. And, I think the first week is great. And I'll try to hunt a couple times during the first week if I can. And really any other time, I
just go.
I think you just go. I always hate this question because it's like, just go. I mean, whenever it fits in your life, you got work and family and friends, like whenever you can fit it in, go and don't geek out about it. I mean, the elk rut's the elk rut. First week before the elk equinox is supposed to be the greatest. Just go. First week of turkey season, depending on the state, is usually the best when they're all fired up. But check out. I've read that Borgelli article more times trying to plan my dates for turkey hunting, and just go.
Whatever your odds of being successful are, they're better than when you're at home.
That's right.
I mean, I've killed them on the first day, the last day, and days in between, and I have no interest in logging that. So yeah, just go. Buy all three licenses too. Buy all three tags. Buy all three tags.
So speaking of tags, we have a question about the cost of tags here in Oregon. I think, is it $25 for a tag? Is that?
It's $26.50, I think, isn't it?
Right.
Is that right? Or $24.50?
No, I think you're right.
$26.50.
You're right.
Yeah. So why? So the question is why does it cost so much?
Yeah.
No, well, it's a good question. I get it a lot. I try to put it in context. It's pretty much the cost of a burger and a beer in Bend, Oregon, right? So is is it really not worth a dinner out to go chase these amazing birds? The truth is Oregon is right in exactly at the average of what all of the Western states charge for turkey hunting. So we are like dead average, maybe a buck more. I think where this question gets a little bit more nuanced is when it comes to fall turkey hunting, and people are harvesting jakes or poults they're younger, they're smaller, and so is it really worth as much to take home this much smaller bird versus a tom in the spring, a big tom in the spring? So the truth is we're actually working on some ways to discount that fall tag. Personally, I would like to see the second and third tags discounted, and that way people aren't punished for taking for getting back out there, because I understand it does add up. I think part of it too is the comparison to the cost of a deer tag. Our deer tags in Oregon are really cheap. And they're really not that much different from a turkey tag. So when you see those costs lined up, you're like, well, how come turkey are so expensive? Well, maybe it's that deer are actually really cheap. So that's just my personal soapbox on that. But I'll also say honestly that turkeys take active management, and active management costs money. And so those turkey tag funds, they go directly back into managing for these birds, putting, especially things like the trap and transplant program. That is not a cheap thing to do, to hire folks to go out and move turkeys all season long. And there's a lot of expenses associated with running a rocket net, that sort of thing, buying boxes, and all of the gas and vehicles back and forth moving birds. So it's expensive to manage turkeys. And so if you guys want them here, then I think it's worth the cost of a burger and a beer.
And kind of on the note of buying tags and stuff for spring. So in the spring we can have 3 tags total of male or bearded turkey, and if I'm correct, it's 3 tags, but you have to fill one at a time. So you have to fill one and then purchase a new one another day. So is there a reason in the management objectives for why you can't have more than one, 3 tags and say go out and harvest all the same day?
Yeah, great question, Carla. So you can possess more than 1 turkey tag, but the daily limit is 1 turkey. And that this is something that kind of comes from the days when turkeys were a lot more and where they were harder to find, and it was an effort to spread out effort and opportunity. So we didn't want someone to get all the birds, right, and we didn't want someone to educate an entire flock of birds in one day. So by taking 1 bird out of the flock and then getting out of there, it's, kind of similar philosophy with the, shooting over the roost at when you're duck hunting. So it was really a regulatory effort to try to spread out opportunity. I could foresee in the next turkey management plan. So this is laid out in black and white in the turkey management plan that we'll have 1 bird per day. So it's not something I can really monkey with on a yearly basis, but I could foresee in the next 5 years when we redo the turkey management plan that's something that could go away, especially if our turkey populations continue to increase. I think what you really have to remember is that we're setting a regulation for the entire state, and so yes, there are places where it would really make sense to allow people to take more than 1 bird per day. But there's others, where turkeys are fewer and further between, where we really would like to spread out that effort and give more people an opportunity. And so we're trying to paint these regulations with a broad brush when really they don't fit every situation. But it's always a choice between complicating regulations or simplifying them, but again, you run into a situation where they don't always apply or make sense in every situation.
All right, and then we have one more question here, and this is advice on getting landowner permission. They had asked for permission to hunt private land and were declined because for those people, turkeys were their friends and they like them here. I know not all landowners feel that way, but when you're going, I know the traditional advice when you ask for where to go turkey hunting, especially here in the Willamette Valley, is to go knock on doors, and that can be a really intimidating thing, and you could be really successful or you could be really let down with that strategy. So what's your advice for approaching a landowner that they know have turkeys on their property?
I'll take it since it's my job. So
let's talk to Brandon.
I think that depends. If it's a cold call, you got to be a salesman. It helps to have something to offer. So before I worked for the agency, I framed out a guy's barn because I was that desperate to have a turkey spot, and that was crazy. But I wanted the turkeys. So if you have a trade or some work to offer, that's a classic one. But that could be annoying to people. So maybe there's some other service or thing that you have to offer. Personal connections work well. So definitely talk with your personal network, and if a friend of a friend knows a landowner, that's a trusted in. That's as old school as it gets in terms of hunting in America. So don't forget personal networks. Nothing replaces gas. I mean, you've got to do the work and drive around. Springtime is a great time because you'll see where birds want to be in that season. That's an opportunity to log an address. You can use Onyx or Gaia GPS. Those are online subscription services. Most people know what they are. It allows you to find out somebody's address. So pin a place you see turkeys, write the person a letter. That can work. I know people who do form letters and they send out 100 and maybe 2 will work out. So those are some classic things that can pan out. It's a tremendous amount of work for maybe landing a few places. So, frankly, I think a lot of people just don't have the appetite or the time to put in really deep landowner recruitment. So when you do find somewhere, you better treasure it and take care of that person. Gifts after the season. I've got a buddy who shares half a backstrap of a deer in one of his landowner deals. So just keep that in mind, and once you have a good relationship, foster that, and hopefully it will stick around for a while. It's never. I'll say this: it's never been easier to find plat maps and really understand land ownership lines, and that's a cool part about technology. It's probably more difficult than 50 years ago to have those warm organic relationships. So there's pros and cons in landowner leads. Mikal, you've been in Oregon a lot longer than me. Do you have any other tips or experience?
No, I think you've done a good job cracking the code. Sometimes with turkeys, you'll actually have landowners that call in to complain to their local ODFW office. And so it doesn't hurt to, give the office a quick call, figure out where your district office is and say, hey, do you have any landowners that are looking for turkey hunters or having turkey problems? That doesn't hurt. And I think that's definitely been part of Brandon's strategy for creating the Hunt by Reservation program. So those properties may be somewhat tapped out, but even, if you live, wherever you are, it doesn't hurt to call your office, local ODFW office, and see if they have anything. Yeah. But yeah, it's not easy. It's not, just takes time. And really what that landowner is looking for is a reason to trust you. And so you want to present yourself as a responsible person, and you want to be very polite, and you want to figure out how to build trust with that person, and you're not gonna do that by driving up their road and leaving a bunch of ruts. If you need to walk up to their place because you don't want to tear up the road, then walk up. And sometimes it just takes being brave too, because it's hard to drive up onto somebody's place and knock on their door. You never know who's going to answer the door. I don't always feel confident doing that. And so, yeah, it's you're taking a chance, but sometimes it really pays off. So just be brave, but don't be stupid.
Be brave and be safe.
Right.
Life lessons from PHA.
Do the buddy
That's
system
right.
without driving around knocking on strangers' houses, just in case.
Buddy system, yeah. If there's a ton of no trespassing signs, then it's best to keep on moving.
Exactly.
There's a reason.
So one other question submitted from somebody outside of our chat here. And their question was about shot and what kind of turkey shot you prefer. If there's a kind of like a kind of gold standard, and also if you can use other types of shot, like stuff that's meant for small game and upland. I know that's probably going to be a question a lot of people are thinking about now, that if you go to the store and try to find some turkey shells, you might be raiding the gun cabinet trying to find something else that might work.
Yeah, that's a very timely question, because you might seriously not be able to find the ideal turkey load this year. I've got a little bit of a stockpile, so didn't think much of it. I'll pitch what we taught in last year's turkey workshop. There's 3 levels. You got budget, mid-grade, and premium. Budget would be like a Kent lead turkey load, something you'll see out there, probably $6 or $8 a box, maybe more now. That's good. I mean, it's okay. It's good enough. If you're the kind of person who wants great gas mileage and geeks out about budget here and there on everything, then that works. I think for a little bit more, you could do a lot better. The Longbeard XR lead load is fantastic. Winchester cracked the code with this turkey load. It needs a specific choke often. A full choke that came with your shotgun's not going to cut it. You want something tighter than that for effective, consistent kills on turkeys. So Winchester Longbeard XR with a choke geared for that load is a good mid-budget, absolute dynamite way to go. The premium tungsten stuff is just naughty. It's just so good. It's really good. And so tag prices, gas, all that, $2 more per shell on 3 birds a year is not a big deal if you want to be rational about it. If you can find the tungsten and have an appropriate choke for it, it needs to be choked a lot tighter. So there's aftermarket, just because the shot's size is very, very small. It's in 7s or 9s. The effective killing range of the 9s is something like 70 yards, just in its energy. Okay, I'm not saying you should shoot a turkey at 70 yards, but the tungsten stuff's really good. And my last plug for that is that it's non-toxic. Okay, so your heavyweight 15 and your TSS is at 18 grams a cubic centimeter, and it's tungsten. It's non-toxic. My family, we like to make stock out of the backbones and the breastbones, the legs. We use the whole stinking bird. So especially now that I've got a kid, I don't want lead in the stock or in the bird in any way. So lead is more affordable. It's been used in hunting for a very, very, very long time, but I just assume not take any chances there. And so I've shifted over to tungsten. Mostly expensive ammo, and then pair it with the wrong choke. You can Google the correct tungsten choke for your shotgun.
And
one more thing, I've seen so many men, grown adult men, miss turkeys at 20 yards, and this is one of them. Because they were shooting a huge 12 gauge, 3.5 inch load. I only shoot a 20 gauge now. I mean, if you've got a 12 gauge, shoot it, but maybe consider a 2 3/4 inch shell, something small. I don't want to preach on this, but I'm just passionate because I've just missed some birds and seen people miss birds with the 12 gauge because they kick like an elephant gun. I don't know why you don't need that much shell to kill a turkey, and yet ammo manufacturers make it because bigger is better, I guess. But you'll miss. So think about that. Practice. Make sure you pattern, and you know what your effective range is. Like that's a huge deal. Really, really big deal.
Yeah, and if you don't know how to pattern your shotgun and you don't know how to figure out your effective range, tomorrow at the same time as this crowdcast at PM, we're going to be airing our virtual workshop on shotgun patterning, and it'll also go over shotgun choice and sights and everything you need to know to get ready to take your gun out into the woods this spring. Jeez.
Cool.
I don't know what time it is either. I have no idea.
You're going by so fast. Is it all turkey? I don't know.
Yeah, it's Groundhog's Day.
All right. Well, I don't see any other questions here, and we didn't announce that we were going to do this, but I had we'd selected a name of somebody at random who's here, or I don't know if they're still here, but they were registered for the chat. So somebody named Tala, Talha from Hillsboro. You are the lucky recipient of one of our very cool BHA branded mouse calls. So I don't know, but we'll be in touch. Do you guys know this person?
Yeah.
Yeah, we know Tala really well.
He came to some of the original turkey workshops that Mikal and I did about 2 years ago.
Yeah, there he is. Hey, Tala, congratulations. He's participated in pheasant hunting workshops, turkey hunting workshops. He shot one of Brandon's turkeys out of the Hunt by Reservation program. Yeah, he's stone cold.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, you'll have to send us some videos when you figure out that mouth call and let us see what you can do with it. So we'll connect with you afterwards and get your information to send you that. And so don't forget, we've got our raffle going on all week until next Sunday. You'll have a chance to win an actual hunt experience on private land in the Willamette Valley, which is a hot commodity these days. You also have a chance to win a Dave Smith decoy Jake and some mouse calls as well. And every night this week, we're going to be having some different virtual workshops. So tomorrow we'll be doing the shotgun patterning. The next day, we're going to have a workshop on archery hunting turkeys, because that's a totally different thing. And it'll also go over what to expect if you're switching from shotgun to archery. And then we're going to have some discussion about how to set up your hunt, times of day, calling, decoys, that kind of stuff. And then finally, you're going to see Brandon again, because we recorded a really cool virtual workshop on field dressing your bird and how to cook it up in the kitchen. So all pretty exciting stuff. And hopefully it'll be enough to get you out in the woods and get you a bird this spring. Obviously, you guys are welcome to reach out to us at any time if you have any other questions or any other resources you wish you had. Any final thoughts or things you want to add, you guys?
No, you guys just get out there, and it's the best time to be in the woods. I'll be honest. It's pretty much the best. So just go out there and give it a try. You never know what you're going to find. This has been really fun, Carla. Thanks for having us.
Oh, thank you so much for coming on, Mikal. Brandon, any final thoughts?
Yeah. I'll just echo what Mikal said. Experience is the best teacher. We're just figuring this out too. So get out there and just be with those birds. And the more you understand about what makes those birds tick, you'll become a better turkey hunter. So get out there, enjoy this beautiful state. It's a great place to turkey hunt.
And let us know how it goes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, be in touch.
I love pictures of dead turkeys.
Absolutely.
and what you cook, and share what you cook.
Yeah, that's right.
Definitely, and don't forget to eat the whole bird.
That's right.
Yes.
It's all good, every part of it.
The legs make great carnitas.
That's right. I've got a turkey leg broth on the stove right now. It's smelling up the whole house.
Awesome.
Oh, yeah.
That's freezer space for the next turkey you're getting in, right?
Yep, it's a freezer space thing. Exactly.
Awesome. Well,
Thank you, Carla, for putting this on. Super cool.
Absolutely. And look forward to bringing the rest of the content with you the rest of the week. And don't forget to enter our raffle, and we'll see you guys around. Thank you so much. Bye.
Awesome.